What's going on, guys? Bladezilla here, and today we are taking a look at a Shirogorov Hati in blue. This is a Gen 3 knife in a new color offering, which is, I believe they're calling it Blue Techno Carbon or Techno Carbo or something. In any sense, it is a seriously good looking blue color with some black background into it and a bunch of gloss kind of sparkle pattern into it. So I'm going to kind of show that, but more than anything I'm going to kind of zoom out here like we normally do into a kind of our standard field, and let's take a look at this knife. So quick reminder, guys, that the knives that I have out on the channel, most of them, or some of them, are available on my website, bladezilla.ca. I am in Canada, hence the .ca. So there's the website, and lo and behold, I just put this one up, or a handful of these ones up on the site, and there it is there. So please check out bladezilla.ca. Enough of the plug. So more than anything, these videos are just a casual conversation, more like what we'd have at like a coffee shop if we're taking a look at knives and chatting. So let's get into this one. Let's talk about it. Let's do some measurements, some comparisons, the usual. But more than anything, for the love of God, take a look at how good this blue looks with a bunch of different light on it. I don't know how close the camera's going to let me get here, but ooh, this is a very deep blue. A lot different than the red, which is not a bad thing. The red looks unbelievable. The blue looks, in my opinion, even that much nicer. Look at this as I roll it. Oh. Okay, so let's get into this one. Couple things before we start. You know, this is not a video on every little last technical aspect of it, and you know, sometimes I get asked for very weird things, but you know, we're not going there. This is just a casual conversation. So I believe this guy, I want to say it's a 4 ounce blade overall, or sorry, yeah, 4 ounces, but 4-inch blade. What are we coming in at here? 8 and 5/8, 8 3/4, depending on how accurate your eyeballs are. Little under 4 inches, probably 3 3/4 sharpened, maybe 3 7/8, and yeah, 4 or 8 and 5/8. So anyway, there's your measurements. Pretty standard. Now the Hattie is a F95 with a carbon front scale with an inlay on the back. So it's kind of the best of both worlds because you get the size of the F95, you get the flipper, obviously, the exact same spot on that flipper, which I love, and then you get the M390 on the blade and the size 95 mil, which is beautiful. This one just shoots right out. It feels great. Multi-row bearings. You know what? This is clearly a winner. I'm not too. Ooh, I might have to keep one of these. It's a good looking knife, eh? Okay, enough. Some comparisons, because I know we know everyone wants to see what this thing looks like. It's going to be the top of the food chain today, because I don't have a 111. You guys grabbed all my 111s, so we're going to do a Stellar, which is a size down, similar in handle size. As you guys have probably seen, you know, handle to handle, very similar, just a shorter blade. We're going to do a Neon, which is my Walter Randolph Neon, which you guys have probably seen now on the channel a number of different times. But beautiful size comparison there that we have the Neon, the Stellar, and the F95, all very carryable. You know, the one thing with Shirogorovs that I always say in these videos is, like, please, for the love of whoever you pray to, don't get hung up on the blade size, because the carry size of the knife is much smaller than you'd think because of how thin, like for example, if we're looking at this one, just how thin the actual handle is. So it's a good size to carry. And now that we're getting into the carbon fiber stuff, you know, it's even easier to carry because, like I said earlier, it slipped out. I think claimed on it is 3.8 ounces. And we're obviously, now that I spent $9 on the scale, we are obviously going to measure that to as accurate as a $9 scale can get. But I think I think this guy was 3.8 or 3.9. It was under 4 ounces claimed. So let's zero this guy. So for my Canadian homeboys, there's your gram weight. Let's just make sure. Okay, yeah, 0, 108, 3.8 ounces. Oh, I can't believe I'm right. I'm going to have to document this moment and ensure my wife sees it. She knows I'm right about something. Not bitter. Anyway, so in terms of the Hattie line, well, you know what? Before we go into there, we will talk more about the Hattie line itself. But let's show a couple comparisons, because I have a couple different Hatties in the house. So I did a video on the red, which we have seen. I've got a handful of these still in the store, and they've been super popular. People really, really like the subtle black color. And then I have a CCKS black and gold S90V Hattie, or however you want to call it. But there's that one. So, and remember, there's an angle of the camera here that's going to look bigger towards closer to the bottom of the screen. So maybe I should actually just not do that and line them up this way. Is that a good idea? What do you guys think? How's that? Now you get an idea of what things look like with the light. So there's your 3 right now. So we obviously have the blue, which looks terrific. That's a great angle of how it pops out. Very, very deep, kind of layering to that color. Beautiful knife. We've got the red, which, I've got a whole video on this one. This should be no surprise. It's also a very deep but dark red, kind of hidden into that carbon, which looks great. Beautiful blade. Also M390, also available, and just depends what you're into. The blue definitely pops more than the red, I'd say. And then this is full black with a little bit of gold inside, which this guy has the gold backspacer on it as well. Beautiful knife, but this one is a personal collection, and I actually do carry this one. So, pretty cool knife. It's light. Like, I don't know the exact weight, but I want to say it's probably half an ounce lighter than the equivalent F95T or F95-0. Both look terrific, obviously, with the light, as you can kind of see, and they both pick up the sunlight in a very, very distinct way as you guys are moving them around. Come on. I'm trying to do this one-handed. Normally I have to tap the screen for it to focus, but as you kind of move around, you can see how the red one's a lot more subtle, right, than the blue, but the blue pops because there's almost like some sparkles inside it. And I think it looks terrific. I'm sure you're going to see this. I'll be doing a lot of close-ups over the next half hour, I imagine, but I always like showing comparison because, it's one thing you don't really get in a photograph. Is if I take a picture of these and I go, oh, one's black, one's red, and you look at them and you're like, okay, great, that's nice. What do I prefer? Well, some people are going to really prefer the blue. Other people are going to really prefer the red. It just depends. So there's a couple Hattie comparisons. I also want to show you guys against, I just opened a box. Did I put it away? No, I have one out. Against the F95T in terms of size as well. And this is the blue. I haven't done a video. I just got this one. But another real cool blue knife. And I really dig how Shirogorov is starting to do this stuff and kind of mix things into some of the anodizing. But there's kind of your direct comparison. So there's your turtle in the ano blue. And just because, the knife video isn't so much about that, but I know people are going to want to know. I've already weighed this at 3.8. Let's get a weight on the other one because in a lot of ways they're a very similar knife. They're actually almost identical, other than that front scale and some inlays on the back. But you want to see how much weight you're saving by carrying a Hattie. And that's the big one for me. So let's get a weight on this guy. So 4.7, so almost a full ounce lighter. let's just make sure we're at 0. Yeah, 4.7, or for my Canadian homeboys, 134. So that's quite a bit of weight savings, right? And it might not seem like much, an ounce, right? But remember, there's that golden rule, blade length. If your blade length is 3-inch, or what is it? Yeah, 3-inch blade length, you want it to be 3 ounces. 4-inch blade length, you want it to be 4 ounces. So the Hattie is certainly abiding by that, and the F95T is just a hair over that, which is fine, which is totally fine. It's just when you're carrying a knife like this, 4-inch blade, and you're able to get that into the sub 4-ounce category, it really opens up the opportunity to carry this in like board shorts, or like basketball shorts, or athletic shorts, something where it's not as structured as, say, like jeans or that kind of thing. It's just a lot lighter. And, you know, it might only be an ounce, but that's 20% of the entire weight of that turtle. So something to think about. I think both look great, and I am going to certainly have to shoot some Instagram photos with the Blue Brothers. Maybe that's what I'll call it, the Blues Brothers. And I guess I can mix in one more blue knife that I actually have here. Actually, I've got a couple of them, but let's do... There's the Quantum Ursus, another real cool one that they just launched that color, an entry-level knife into the Shirogorov Quantum line. And then this one I just got today in stock, a couple more of these guys, and that is your Quantum Ursus. And this guy is actually multi-row bearings. And I'm going to have to film a video on this one actually after this. Super, super bang for your buck knife. I would say the most bang for the buck in the entire Shirogorov range right now. Multi-row bearings, titanium frame, $625 US. I think I'm selling them for, I don't even know, around $1,000, something like that, Canadian, delivered. So with tax, it's unbelievable value for what you're getting. But great. I'm going to have to do a video on that because they are going to, I think, be very popular. But as you can kind of tell, Shiro is really going into the blue area, which is fine. I love blue. People love blue. It's kind of a nice little departure. Oh, and an F95, another blue one. There's another guy. That's an F95 NL. Also a real cool knife. Super heavy. Love that knife. But single row bearings, not multi-row. But it's not a quantum, so super cool. God, I didn't realize how much blue I had here till you look at it. But anyway, let's chat about this knife. So to start things off, obviously, 4-inch, sub 4-inch blade, 95 mil in the Hattie. Okay, it's M390, which we should be able to see on the blade there. Beautiful steel. I'd say it's kind of a very blue-collar steel, pun intended, in that it's sharp, it holds a edge really well, easy enough to sharpen, and it just works. It really, really works well. It's kind of the gold standard right now for production steels, I'd say. So M390. We've got jimping on the top of that M390, which is nice. I don't know how usable it is. It's pretty smooth, and it's also the same pattern as the backspacer, as you can kind of see here. And that's something they're starting to kind of do a lot more of, I find. So they're kind of matching that pattern on the blade, which is cool. It's a little bit kind of reduced down, but for the most part, you can kind of see it's very similar. Now, in terms of the blade itself, we've got a nice flat top to it, all the way down to the tip of the blade, and we do not have that swage that we've been putting on a lot of the other knives here. It's just nice and flat all the way down, which is totally cool. It means you can choke up on it with your thumb onto that jimping. It also means that if you really wanted to put your finger right down to the tip, you could utilize that pretty easily. It's actually very fat on top of this, and I didn't really realize how thick the blade stock is on this, especially there. Is that the same as the other guy, or did I miss the memo? No, it's the same. And then the other Hattie S90V, yeah, same thing. Crazy. I did want to talk about that little swage in the blade, And was that on the... Sorry, bear with me guys while I dig through here. Yes, so if we go on to the F95T, that's where I'm seeing it. See what they kind of do is they round the blade, and then at the tip there, they kind of expand it out. And that's to provide some edge, some strength on that edge on the tip, right? Whereas in this guy, they kind of just maintain that profile right down the entire length of the blade. So pretty cool. It's a nice little comparison there, F95T versus Hattie. I love doing little things like this because when I film them, I often find things myself that I didn't even realize. The Shirogorov logo is etched onto the blade, which is, you know, it's nice. You know my personal preference on this if you watch the channel enough. I wouldn't like that to be on the blade. I'd kind of like it somewhere on the handle. And I'd also like that M390 to be stamped somewhere. In a perfect world, probably like right there on the tip. That's where I'd like to see it, rather than in the cutting path, which is just somewhere that's going to slowly wear off with use, but not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. When you're talking a knife of this magnitude of price point, I'm allowed to be picky. I'm allowed to say what I want to see. These are not things that 99% of people will ever complain about, but you're allowed to when you're in that over $1,000 production knife price point. Multi-row bearing. So I kind of mentioned that. Fires out real nice and smooth. Now, multi-row bearings compared to single-row bearings, think of them as 3 balls in a row in a pinwheel pattern. So single-row bearings for Shirogorov, if we're looking at the pivot, you would put balls around the pivot. That's your single-row style. Okay? So you'd put ball around, probably 14 or 15 of them in a track. Multi-row bearings, you're going to put, instead of one around the perimeter, you're going to kind of put them in a pinwheel pattern in a line, 3 in a line, 3 in a row in a line, kind of like the rays of sun. So, you know, they say it adds structural side-to-side rigidity, right? Or twisting, bending, twisting. To me, it's just cool. It's smooth, and it gives them their kind of patented float home feel to it. Even this is not even broken in. You guys have seen every single little flip of this blade, and it's like smooth, super smooth. Out of the box, oh man, you can't beat that for Shiro. And we're just getting started. So I like, personally, I really like single row bearings for Shirogorov. They feel great, they look great, they work fantastic. I don't have any problems with them. Multi-rows, absolutely, they work great, they feel fantastic. Where you start noticing like a real smooth action is when you go into their roller bearings. So if you take a multi-row bearing pattern and you kind of modify it to be like a needle bearing, oh, they float, absolutely float. Super cool, but that's not what this video is about. We're talking production blades, not their custom division, typically. What else here? So the backspacer, obviously, we have some models. I don't know, have we seen a lower end Hattie in a while? I don't know if we have. Did they make one? Like a composite instead of a carbon? I don't know if they have. On this model, obviously, it's a premium level trim, which means we've got a full-length backspacer. We've got that M390 blade, as I mentioned, with the full-length backspacer. And in that backspacer, we've got a real cool way of attaching lanyards. So from the side, you might think, oh, where is it? How do I attach my backspacer here, guys? Or sorry, my lanyard. How do I do that? But it's built into the backspacer, which is awesome because, you know, it's just a nice little hidden feature that a lot of people dig because you don't see it. And if we compare that to the Stellar, you can see how they've drilled it right through the blade. Not through the blade, my God. I need a cup of coffee here, guys. They've drilled it right through the both handles, both sides. which tends to add a little bit overall to the shape, right? When you can hollow that space out versus maintain a blade inside it, right? So they're starting to do this on a lot of their higher end production pieces, and it's definitely something I like. So if we take the F95T in blue again, and we look at this guy, same kind of thing. We've got the same backspacer essentially, a little different pattern wise, but from the side you don't see it, it's not drilled out. We're maximizing the blade in that position as well, right? Because the blade has to go up into the handle. And from the top, bada bing, bada boom. Bob's your uncle. We've got perfect ability to run a lanyard. So they're doing that on the Hattie. And it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I love how they do that. The pocket clip itself is very similar and shared between a couple different models. In fact, I believe it is the same pocket clip as the F95, but let's just compare. It looks the same, similar enough. Pattern-wise, a little different, a little more micro milling on this one, but remind you that it's kind of in line with the pattern of the knife on the F95, right? That's kind of what they're going for there. And if we even go into the custom division turtle, same thing. You can kind of see it's more actually in line with that than anything. And in fact, the milling on this Hattie is even finer than on the custom division. Look at that. That is something to think. That's something to take note of, guys. That is very high-end milling. Oh, that's something special. I didn't realize that. Hopefully you guys can see that. Remember, the F95T Turtle is some serious high-end mill work, but it is even finer on the Hattie. That's interesting. Wonder why they did that. That's not a bad thing either. And then the milling as well, if we go into the actual lock bar here, and this is going to be hard to focus because the knife is going to want to keep focusing on that pocket clip, but you can see that same milling that's on the pocket clip is also down here on the lock bar, which is very, very fine. It is also down here below on the lock bar. They have done some serious work on this, my goodness. Oh, I didn't realize how good of a job they did on this for a production knife. That's like next level. I really didn't know that. So you see what I'm talking about with all the milling there? How from a distance it doesn't even look like they've milled anything. Then you get close, you're like, oh my god, those are lines. Yep. Add to cart. Yep. And then also up here, same thing. Below the flipper tab. Also very, very fine micro milling. That looks terrific. Ooh. So that's the one thing with Shirogorov's, like, the detail work that they do on their production pieces, it's the best. It's the best in the world. Like, no one's touching it right now. And it's kind of sad that, it's done in Russia, and I'm surprised no one's really doing it in North America. Like, they kind of own this space right now. And that's not a bad thing. These are readily available, beautiful pieces. Sometimes they're out of stock, but they seem to be kind of regularly coming in stock every 6 months or so. So they're obviously on some kind of rotation there. But beautiful detail work on that lock bar. Oh, centering, as you'd expect, is absolutely bang on. This shouldn't even be anything to worry about with Shiro's. In fact, as we go down the line, I find the tolerances just get tighter and tighter and tighter to the point where they like add emphasis to how good and precise their building is. Like if we look at the Molten Overkill, another production piece, look how they're adding a little spacer around the center of the blade to be like, you know what? Not only are we centered, but we cannot be anything but centered because of that piece. That is nuts. Oh. And as we're filming this right now, I still have the Molten Overkill in the store. Not that knife, but a different one. It's still available. So that's not going to last long. Ooh, another thing. The flipper tab on the F95 is just something I really truly love. And if we compare that with the Quantum, I don't have, you know what, let's go back to that Quantum Ursus. So, or Quantium, sorry. If we look at these guys, you see how the Quantum, they kind of build the flipper tab into the handle, right? And it's in a line, it's nice, smooth, easy access. Some people love that. Some people really like that because it's ergonomic, it doesn't add anything to catch on your pocket, so to speak. F95 is like the classic pocket pecker, as Nick Shabazz says. And that's this guy, obviously. And I don't know why. I just think some days I really prefer it because even on their Neon, they kind of follow that same process, right? Your finger just kind of falls in front of it, finds it a little easier, in my opinion, than the Quantum. Neither are bad. Both work fantastic. I'll say if you have smaller hands, sometimes having that tab back a little bit also helps, right? It's just less distance for it to travel for your finger. So, you know, I love the Quantum. Love the Neon, obviously. And I love the positioning on that F95 handle for the flipper tab. It's just beautiful. Just beautiful. In hand, fits like a glove as well as it should. For a righty, obviously. The pocket clip hides really, really well, and I kind of went off topic when I was talking about the pocket clip. I'll come back to the fit in hand, but you can see that the pocket clip has a bit of a column that hangs off to the side here. So if we're looking at it from the front, the clip itself puts all the pressure when it's in your hand onto the frame rather than the lock bar. It's kind of hard to show that. Maybe from the side like that you can kind of see it if the camera picks it up correctly. But essentially it just means when it's fitting in your hand and you're squeezing it, it transfers the weight of that onto the frame rather than the lock bar through that one-sided little stilt that's on the side of the clip. So when I'm talking about it in my hand, I'm holding it, but I'm not putting any pressure on the lock bar still, despite it being in my hand, which is nice. I still have full fingers room on the side of the knife, so that if you wanted to wear a glove with this, it would be no problem. The contouring on the actual handle itself is nice and smooth, rounded, and because of the flipper tab, creates kind of a locked-in feel right at the tip here, which is beautiful. Now, the contouring itself on the lock bar, beautiful thing. This is what I love about this knife. Like, when I roll this handle, you can just see that lock pop right up, and not only that, there's micro milling on it, which is just drool worthy and looks incredible. So when you're holding the knife, your finger finds that super easily to lock or to disengage, as you can kind of see, super easy. Just looks the part, feels the part, no hot spots whatsoever on this in my right hand. And remember, I'm 6'3", so extra large gloves in this thing is not a problem. Now, in terms of the locking mechanism, obviously we have a classic frame lock here. And yes, we do in fact have a removable lock bar insert. Now, as I always say, what's that good for? Well, if you're going to own the knife for a number of years, yeah, of course you can, if they have parts available, of course you can replace that. But it also tunes the materials. So here we have a titanium frame, we have an M390 blade, and do you think titanium and M390 perfectly machined to the correct tolerances are going to wear in together beautiful and play well in the same sandbox? Not necessarily. So let's put a known steel between them that meshes well, that wears well, that's predictable, doesn't create any lockup or lock stick, and you get a thing of beauty when it's executed well, like it is. Now on the inside of this, we do have obviously a bunch of milling on the titanium side to get that weight savings in line. I'm going to try to show this. My skills are not what they used to be, guys, but hopefully you can see inside there. There you go. It's all milled out in kind of like that wavy S pattern that they like to do. Looks good. Now on the Oh, come on, you're freaking out, eh? On the actual carbon side, it looks like it's pretty flat. I don't see much weight reduction in there, but it's carbon. Let's be honest, you don't need to reduce weight of carbon. It already feels light enough. But around the edges of the carbon, you're seeing what they're doing. They're treating it like it's steel or titanium. All the milling work, including up that same angle above the pivot. Remember I was talking earlier about the micro milling, this little angle here? See that line? How good that looks? Well, they've replicated it. Same thing on this side. There's a line. Come on, there we go. From right here to the top, and it's got milling lines as well. It's kind of hidden. It's tough to show these carbon details. Honestly, it's really tough to show. But there's lines here all around the perimeter of it. You can see, oh, you can see the line a little better there. But all around the perimeter, it's smooth. No hot spots. No loose fiber cuts. Nothing like that. Perfect centering. Oh, just a thing of beauty, man. I love looking at these production pieces because it just kind of shows how well you can make these things work. Beautiful. Now, in terms of the size of the carbon and the titanium, I think we're pretty well perfectly matched. Now, the one thing that I will be asked here is, well, what's the balance like now that you're taking an ounce out of the handle? And let's find out. There you go. It's resting on my pointer finger, perfectly balanced in my hand. No issues, no concerns. So I don't know how they do that. I would have thought, just given the weight, that they would have had to reduce the thickness of the blade, which they didn't. So I don't know how they do that. It's really cool. Beautifully balanced knife. Looks and sounds phenomenal. And then once again, that same milling work that's done up here should be done down here as well. Yep. So you can see that line right here in front of my finger. All that milling, beautifully done. Just a work of art, these carbon pieces are. Just gorgeous. You know, some are going to say, well, how come they don't butt that back spacer all the way up? Yeah, I don't know. Would I like to see something a little higher? Maybe. If I was asking for something, I'd like to kind of see how they squeeze the materials in and fill that space up like they do on the custom division knives. If I take my the turtle, see what I'm doing up there? See how they kind of squeeze it in there? I think that just adds emphasis to it and looks cool. Not really practical in any way, it just shows like, hey, we can do this. And that's why we're doing it. But otherwise, super, super cool knife. I haven't even talked about how they've matched the pattern on the back here and actually molded it around as well, which is just great. You know, the NL models, they don't get enough credit. To me, it's like you get all the functionality of titanium plus like a wear strip that just takes all the abuse. And are we under? We are under the, oh wow. If we look where that inlay even goes, it goes right underneath the pocket clip too. That's super cool. Wow. I did not expect that. So, yeah, it'll glide right in there. It'll glide into, or this will glide under the pocket clip as easily as the money glides out of your bank account to buy one. Nice little feature, huh? I'm obviously joking. But yeah, everything looks solid. The pivot's obviously oversized as well. Now I will say that you know, the pivots, you know, technically can be opened with screwdrivers. I highly suggest not doing that. I always say buy the Shirogorov tool, or if you don't have it, use a penny. You know, penny. This is my Hinderer penny. You know, it's softer than the material of the metal, so it damages penny before the hardware. But if you don't have a penny, because I know they're actually starting to get hard to find here in Canada since they discontinued them. Fun fact, we don't have pennies. You could use a folded credit card as well. And it's a soft material, so you're not going to do damage to anything that way as well. So, or just buy the tool and don't worry about it. And just do it right, you know. Either you're looking at $1,000 plus knife, US and up, and you're not going to have to open these up very often, if at all, but when you do, it's certainly nice to have the right tools for it. So we've talked about the blade, how it's a nice drop point. We've talked about the jimping, how it's M390. I've discussed the lock bar, the metal lock bar insert, a super cool clip. I talked about the inlays, how good it looks, how good it fits, the finish. I did not mention the flipper tab, how when you're opening this guy, if the camera wants to focus, how they have this landing spot right here for your fingers, right in front of it. That is also a nice little detail. Shirogorov is known for details, but when you open this guy up, see your finger just flops right into this nice track here. Once again, no hot spots. Just an ergonomic masterpiece. So, there you go. That is the Shirogorov Hati in blue, Gen 3. Available now on the site when I'm filming this. I don't know when this video is going to be up, obviously. Things seem to be going a lot quicker than I anticipate lately, which is a good sign of things to come. And you know, if there is a piece you guys do want me to do a video on or do want me to check out, please let me know down below in the comments, because I read every single one. And you know, I'm a knife freak just like you guys, and definitely just want to show you guys, you know, do videos on things you guys want to watch. So if there's something I'm missing, let me know. If you want to call me out on all the measurements I messed up, please, by all means, do that as well. Not that it's going to matter, but every now and then I do mess up, so I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm far from it, guys. So anyway, that is the knife. Appreciate you stopping by. I'm going to grab myself a screen grab there for the intro, and that is it. So thanks for stopping by. Any questions, leave them below. Otherwise, like, subscribe, share, and until next time, we will see you later. All right? Peace, guys.